My 2003 Saab 9.3 just crossed the 175,000 mile mark. Today we are going to do a long-term ownership video. Problems I've had, maintenance I've had to do, future maintenance that is now due because of the high mileage, and more. So let's get into it. One big announcement before we actually get started with today's video, and that is, you might have noticed I'm wearing a new shirt. I just launched my Born from Jets Saab 9.3 merchandise. This is very similar to the 900 merchandise I released a few months back. It would be a huge help if you guys could check it out at the link in the top of the description. Help support the channel. They're very comfortable shirts. I am enjoying wearing mine so far. With that out of the way, quick overview of what we're going to discuss in this video. First off, I want to discuss my ownership history. I want to talk about the problems I've had, mechanical and electrical, the maintenance I have performed over my 8 years of owning the car, my overall thoughts on the car, things I like and dislike, and the future work I'm expecting to do now that the car has hit that 175,000 mile mark. This is a 2003 Saab 9.3, so first model year of the new body style, and it's an ARC. It's been great for me. Like I said, I've owned it for 8 years. I've put over 60,000 miles on it in that time, and well, I bought it stock, and now you can see it is not stock, and it has been modified a good bit, but honestly that hasn't really affected the reliability of it. Let's talk about some of the problems I've had with the car. First off, this car has only ever stranded me one time. It almost stranded me twice, but the one time it did strand me was because I had a flat tire, the car being lowered, I couldn't get the jack under the car on the side of the highway, so I unfortunately had to have it towed. Now I keep 2x10s in my trunk just in case that happens again. But that is the only time this car has ever left me stranded. Let's knock on some wood or something here to hope that doesn't change. But overall, this car has been super reliable given its age and its mileage. And of course, with these cars and any car, maintenance is critical. Making sure you stay up to date on your maintenance. Previous owners as well are really gonna help keep these cars on the road longer, as well as, again, any car out there. Let's discuss mechanical problems. I'm going to just read off the list here. So starting with oil leaks and fluid leaks. I had a power steering leak, vacuum pump leak, oil level sensor leak, valve cover leak, and I now have one current leak, which I believe is coming from the timing cover or the crank seal. I've also had to buy new coil packs once. Again, common problem on these cars, like with the oil leaks I just mentioned. I had a coolant leak from one of the oil cooler hoses. I had to do a new AC condenser and an AC recharge. I did notice that it looks like one of the AC lines is starting to leak just a little bit. Air still blows cold, but I'm probably gonna need to replace an AC line here at some point soon. I also did a new coolant tee. That is a very common problem as well. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out the video in the top corner. And I had a couple vacuum lines snap on me, all just kind of typical old car problems because this car is now over 20 years old. I have also dealt with some electrical problems. Many people like to complain and think these cars are a nightmare electronically. They're certainly more complicated than the older Saabs, but that doesn't mean they're impossible to own. So recently, you might recall a video I did where I needed a new SIM module. It also has needed a couple of new window regulators, and it did have, or does have, one door lock that kind of sticks intermittently, meaning sometimes it doesn't lock, sometimes it doesn't unlock. It's the rear passenger door, so no one really ever sits back there or uses that, so I'm not really too concerned about it. I've done basic maintenance on it at regular intervals. I've done oil changes, spark plugs, a trans fluid flush. I've done serpentine belt and tensioner replacements, brake and coolant flushes. I've done new thermostat, cabin filter. I've done brake and suspension components overhaul. So I've done brake upgrade on the front, new pads and rotors on the rear, all new shocks and springs. Again, a lot of wear and tear items that start to go as cars get older. Next, let's talk about my overall thoughts on the car, and I'll keep this brief. Clearly, if you didn't know, Saab is no longer made, and they're not making any more of these cars. So I always try to push people, if you can, try to keep these things on the road as opposed to parting them out. This also means it is getting harder and harder to find clean examples of a 9.3. Of course, they're still out there, they're still plentiful, but they're not sitting on every street corner in the same way that a Honda might be. I would still make the argument that I think the 9.3 is one of the best bang for your buck cars out there, meaning everything it gives you for the price that you're paying is fantastic. It's really just good at everything it does. It's not perfect at any one thing, but it's good and it excels at everything. It's relatively fast and fun to drive. It's relatively comfortable. I think it looks good. It has good features and tech for its age. It's decently practical, especially if you get a wagon or a combi, and it's reliable when well taken care of. Bouncing off of that, I want to talk about a couple of things I have grown to like and dislike about this car in my 8 years of ownership. If you want to see a really cringe old video, you can click up in the top corner during this segment. These are some of the first videos I made where I talked about the things that I liked and disliked about this car, probably 6-7 years ago. And some has stayed the same, some has changed, but I'm gonna go through this very quickly here. Like I said already, it's good at everything. I like the styling of it. I also think it's relatively easy to work on, especially compared to a lot of other cars I have worked on. The Ecotec is just a good, simple engine. And there are some repairs that are difficult, but overall, a lot of things to do on this car aren't very bad at all. Everything is just well set up and ergonomically correct. So everything in the dashboard kind of faces towards the driver. There's buttons for everything. This was obviously the time before touchscreens everywhere, so there's a button for everything. It all just logically makes sense, the placement of where things are at. And lastly, I think the driving experience of it, even for this one being an automatic, is pretty engaging. Some of the things I dislike about this car, first off, finding parts. So parts are not hard to find. Let me get that disclaimer out of the way. A lot of people think that Saabs, you can't find parts, and while that's true, you can't just go up to AutoZone and get everything you need for these cars, especially if you're looking for OEM parts. You can still find everything you need, but just about everything has to be ordered online. I will also link right here a video for parts sources if you're wondering. I'll link a video in the top corner so you can learn more about some of the great parts resources we do have for these cars. Another common complaint amongst pretty much all 9.3 owners is, since this was under the GM ownership, there is a lot of cheap plastic on the interior. I've done some leather upgrades that have helped kind of mitigate that a little bit, but there's no getting around it. The interior is definitely a little bit cheap feeling. I do wish the practicality was a bit better. Obviously it's a sedan, at the end of the day it's not going to be perfect, but for example, I do wish the seats in the rear would fold down flat. They don't, so if you ever need to fit something huge in the car, it's pretty hard. They'll fold down at a decent angle, but it would be nice if the packaging was a bit better and they would fold down flat. The electronics, like I mentioned earlier, can also be a little bit fiddly. Tech 2 is required to program a lot of modules. Lastly, let's get to the part I have been dreading, and that is the future work expected on this car. So 175,000 miles is a pretty big number, and these 9.3s can last for an extremely long time. I've seen countless examples of these hit over 200,000 miles. Again, maintenance being critical to that. But in order to get it to that 200,000 mile mark, I think there's some work that we're going to need to do. So the car does run exceptionally well. It does have that small oil leak that I mentioned earlier, but besides that, it runs great. Everything I'm about to list as a result of that is technically preventative maintenance. And the first biggest one being the timing chain, balance chain, and all of the guides and tensioners associated with that. So 175,000 miles doesn't necessarily mean that right when you hit that, your timing chain and guides are going to start to go. You can start to hear some rattling when they do go, or when they are on their way out. Mine doesn't make any of that noise, but I figure I'd like to get ahead of that and prevent the car from possibly breaking a timing chain guide or something catastrophic happening, and next thing you know, I need a new motor. I figure it will be easier to just do that preventive maintenance now and have the peace of mind. So there will be a big video coming on that sometime, hopefully in the not too near distant future. I still need to order parts for it. So there can be a lot of 9.3s that are probably at the 200,000 mile mark that haven't had those replaced and they're running great. But again, sort of a preventative maintenance thing I want to do for peace of mind. Next up is water pump, similar to the timing chain guides. I'm surprised my car is still on the original water pump, not leaking, running great. That'll be done at the same time as the timing chain and guides. That is also another fairly involved job. Beyond that, I might want to do the fuel pump too. It is still the original fuel pump, so that wouldn't hurt. Motor mounts might need to be done. As far as I know, they're all the original motor mounts. Haven't gotten in there to confirm if any of them are truly shot. I'm sure I'll find that out pretty quickly when I go to do the timing chain video, and we'll update you guys then on that. But beyond that, I have lots of very fun parts coming. So it's not all going to be boring, tedious maintenance. I have a new gauge cluster coming for it. Some of you might already know what I'm referring to if you're active on Facebook or Instagram. I have posted a teaser of that. I have a body kit coming for it, as well as some paint that's going to be done. I want to refinish the wheels. Might be doing some minor interior upgrades and might paint the brakes, do some other things, but I have a whole list in my phone that's probably 30, 40 items done that I want to hopefully all get done before the owners convention in July. But if you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up. And again, please check out my merchandise at the top link in the description to help support the channel. And let me know your thoughts down below. Other 9.3 long-term owners, if your car has more than 175,000 miles, have you dealt with timing chain issues yet? Have you replaced the water pump? Have you done any other sort of maintenance on your car that I didn't mention? I'm done talking now. I'll see y'all next time.